First things first, folks. Welcome to the Garden of English. I'm Tim Freitas. I want to give a huge shout out to the AP students in Ms. Hudak's class at Holy Cross High School and Ms. Gazette's students at Mount St. Mary's. I've been chatting with your teachers as of late, and you are super fortunate to have such dedicated folks guiding your classroom. I look forward to hearing of your success after the exam in May. Alright, let's get into what we're taking care of today. It's time for argument, and this essay can be quite deceitful. It may seem nice and easy, but let me tell you, sometimes it's tricky. But I've got you covered. You just gotta stand by me. Now, this particular essay task can be especially sticky if you've already written 2 other essays and only have a little less than an hour to write the final essay on your AP exam. Talk about anxiety and pressure. Or agony and pain. Whether or not you save your argument until the end, write it first, or sandwich it between the other essays, I'm going to reveal the secrets of how to break down the argument prompt so that no matter how much pressure you feel, you'll be able to own this essay. So let's get to it. For this video, I'm going to rely on an argument prompt taken from the AMSCO AP Lang and Composition book. Did you know? I heard that book has some pretty amazing authors. Alright, all fun and kidding aside, this prompt is extremely accessible and you'll see it on the screen right about now. Alright, so you've read the prompt, but you haven't actually read the prompt. So let's look at what you need to do, starting with, well, step 1. This step is called the springboard step, because it's going to give you a springboard to build your thoughts about what you need to write about. When you get a prompt, while you read it, you first need to search for the positions, perspectives, and assumptions that are contained within it. This may sound super simple, and oftentimes it can be, but there is a little bit of nuance I want to explain so that you can do this like a champ on test day. To do this right, you need to know the difference between a position and a perspective. A position is what is actually being argued. A perspective is the relationship of the person arguing to the subject that he or she is arguing about. For example, I can want to help prepare one of my students to grow up and be incredibly successful, and so can that child's parents or guardians. So we share the same position. But why I care about that student's success is different than the guardian's reason for caring, because I'm coming from the perspective of an educator and the guardian is coming from the perspective of, well, exactly that. When you look for assumptions in the prompt, you need to consider what's implied by different parts of the prompt and then just record those implications. If you're going to neglect one of these 3 elements in your initial search, ignore the assumptions part. Though you might not need to do the assumption part, I'm still going to show you what finding these assumptions looks like, because if you can do it, it'll help you think more critically about the prompt. But remember, you'll make it out alive if you don't find that last element.
I'm alive! Yeah!
The positions and perspectives though, now those parts are non-negotiable. You gotta make sure you pinpoint those when you read through the prompt the first time. The reason why you want to find as much of what I just mentioned as possible is because this step will be the springboard for your thoughts. It'll also help you develop different ways to engage with the prompt besides just sitting there wishing you didn't have one more essay to write. So let's actually try step 1 out with this particular prompt. If I go back to it, I want to recognize that there are 2 positions clearly articulated within the text. These would be, warning labels allow individuals not to encounter troubling material, and this is an appropriate action. And the other position is that tolerating offense is an integral part of a society that is free. In regard to the perspectives for these positions, you'll notice that the first position is attributed to general advocates, and the second position is attributed to a lecturer at the Yale Child Study Center. Now, is one position more important than the other because of whose perspective it comes from? Not necessarily, but there may be one you gravitate toward more, and you just want to consider this. You should also know that sometimes prompts only offer just one position and perspective. That's okay too. If you'd like an example of a prompt like this, check out the 2018 publicly released AP Lang question 3 about exploring the unknown. Anyway, once you find these positions and perspectives, all you need to do is just mark them in the organizer that's linked in the description down below this video. I'll show you what it actually looks like in just a few moments. Before I do though, I want to draw your attention towards searching for the assumptions in the prompt as well. All I'm asking you to do is mine the prompt for areas that imply something is true without necessarily articulating that position. In the case of this prompt, it implies that the media is filled with offensive and troubling content. Troubling content is consistently definable, and applying warning labels may negatively affect an individual's ability to tolerate offense. If you were to go check out that 2018 prompt I mentioned a little while ago, you'll notice that one of the assumptions in that prompt would be that there is actually value in exploring the unknown. All you're doing to find these assumptions is searching for snippets of language that suggest something is true without making making the absolute truth claim about it. Seriously complex reading skill here, so that's why you need to practice it a bit. And if you really struggle with it, like I said, no big deal, don't do the assumptions part. The point of this particular part of searching for assumptions will only just allow you to generate more nuanced thoughts about the topic, but you could totally do just that when finding the positions and the perspectives that are mentioned. So now once you consider the positions and the perspectives and the assumptions if you so choose, you're going to want to put them in the chart, and this is what it will look like. On test day, you can just make quick notes about these things on the white space underneath your argument prompt. But if you're just trying this out, you should really have a nice organizer to fill in. And of course, you guessed it, you can find that blank organizer in the description right below. You know what else you can find right below this video? Things like this: the like button, and the subscribe button, and the super thanks button, and the channel membership button. But let's get back to the organizer that we're talking about in this video. If you search in the description and you look at that organizer, after you fill in step 1, you're going to notice there's a step 2. So let's take that step. Step 2, super easy. Once you identify the positions, perspectives, and assumptions, I need you to look at them and just mark whether or not you agree with what's presented there. If you agree with a particular position, put a plus sign next to it. If you disagree with a particular position, just toss a minus sign next to it. You could do the same with the assumptions if you chose to mark those. And if you partly agree or disagree, just put a little plus and minus sign next to it. Based on my thoughts, here's what step 2 would look like if I were to fill in the organizer. I'm not asking you to think of examples or anything yet. I'm just looking for you to think about what you do and don't agree with, because doing this will help generate the complexity of your argument when you begin to produce your thesis and your paper. After you mark your initial thoughts, it's time to search for the command element of your prompt. This will be step 3. In the argument prompt, finding the command will always start with the word argue, and then you're going to want to go to the end of the sentence. Just underline this language on test day, but for the sake of our organizer, I want you to copy from the word argue to the end of the sentence into the box. It's going to look like this. You may remember that I made a video about how to break down the rhetorical analysis prompt to really help you prepare to write the essay. When I did, I told you to find the command and then use it to generate a question that will allow you to conquer writing that rhetorical analysis essay. Well, the same is true for the argument prompt. We're going to use this command to generate a question or questions that we will have to answer in our thesis in order to actually AP, which of course stands for answer the prompt. In this case, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the language in the command and you're going to ask a question about what you need to clarify when you actually respond to the prompt with your thesis. Generating this conquer question is step 4. When you make this question, you absolutely must start it with either the word what or the phrase to what extent. And I encourage you to use the latter. So you'll notice that if I were looking at the command of this prompt, I would need to clearly answer either of the following questions. What is my position on the use of warning labels or warning messages to signal potentially troubling content? Or to what extent should warning labels be used to signal potentially troubling content? They are essentially the same question, but one does bring us to a little bit more nuance. And that's the second one. And notice if I were to answer either of those questions, it would delineate my position clearly about the use of warning labels. Turning the command element of the prompt into a question makes thesis generation significantly easier, because you can know if you are not clearly answering this question in your sentence. And if you're not setting yourself up for success. But if you do answer that question clearly, you know you've nailed it. Filling in this step on my organizer would look like this. Once we've generated a question or questions that our thesis will have to answer, we're going to finish the job by quickly jotting down our initial reaction to the question we generated in step 4. No need for extreme nuance here, but you need to have a position about what the prompt is asking you. So think about all that you've covered in the prior steps to make the claim that you're about to. For right now, go with your gut, even if it's emotionally charged and it might be unreasonable. We could change things up later. You're going to want to record your position in the table, and it would look something like this. Good. You've broken down the prompt, you've gotten your feet wet with the topic, but now, just because your initial reaction is the final step of your planning, don't think you're home free. First, you need to practice what I went over here today so that you can internalize these steps and complete them in under 5 minutes on test day. So go practice with a bunch of AP exam prompts. You can access them online. You'll also need to learn how to turn all of your planning thoughts into sophisticated thesis statements and essays. And that's why you're going to need to join me in this video right over here, where you can learn how to do exactly that.